ووصى بها إبراهيم بنيه ويعقوب يا بني إن الله اصطفى لكم الدين فلا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون
এরই ওসিয়ত করেছে ইব্রাহিম তার সন্তানদের এবং ইয়াকুবও যে, হে আমার সন্তানগণ, নিশ্চয় আল্লাহ তোমাদের জন্য এ ধর্মকে মনোনীত করেছেন, কাজেই তোমরা মুসলমান না হয়ে কখনো মৃত্যু বরণ করো না।
I'll at least mention the next ayah and I'll close. I won't explain it much. وَوَصَّى بِهَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبُ. And Ibrahim alayhi salam left a legacy, left a will, you could even say, for his sons, as did Yaqub. And Yaqub did the same. How much time between Ibrahim alayhi salam and Yaqub alayhi salam? Who's in between? There's Ibrahim alayhi salam, then there's his son Ishaq alayhi salam, and then there is Yaqub alayhi salam. So Allah is talking about the grandfather and the grandson. Now if you look at the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah said, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً. From our children, at least give us a Muslim ummah. So in the next ayah, Allah is saying, actually, I've also fulfilled the dua, not only with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also in the next generation of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Yaqub alayhi salam also fulfilled that legacy and traced himself back to exactly the words that his grandfather once said to his children. The grandson is saying those same words to his children. So it's something you're supposed to pass down to your children. And that would be part of the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. You know, the previous ayah said, who would turn away from his legacy except a fool? Well, Yaqub alayhi salam held on to that legacy, and one of the ways in which he held on to that legacy is giving his sons the same exact advice that his father once gave to his sons. Now what's that advice? Ya baniya inna Allah astafa lakum ad-deena. My sons, my beloved sons, Allah, no doubt about it, it is He who has chosen this deen for you. Once again, istifa. I won't explain what that means again. He has chosen that deen for you. Now there's istafa alaykum and istafa lakum. When something is a burden on you, alaykum is used. When something is a favor to you, lakum is used. Istafa lakum ad-deen. This religion has been chosen for you. The deen has been chosen for you, as a favor to you, as a gift for you. Lakum ad-deen. It's amazing that these prepositions, how they're used in Quran. Like in Surah At-Tawbah, Allah says, قُلْ لَن يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. Tell them, nothing will afflict us except what Allah has written, not upon us, but for us. كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا, not عَلَيْنَا. Alayna would mean we're going to come, this was the munafiqun talking about Muslims getting in trouble on the battlefield in Hunayn. Right? Muslims got in trouble in the battlefield in Hunayn. Allah told them to say, no, Allah, nothing will afflict us except what Allah has written for us, not against us, for us. Even in the toughest times, whatever we're going through, we know Allah has something good in it for us. كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا هُوَ مَوْلَانَا وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. What beautiful verbiage, So now here we find, لَكُمُ الدِّينِ فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Don't you dare die except that you're Muslims. Don't you dare die except that you're Muslims. Now listen to this. Who are the sons of Yaqub alayhi salam? We know who the sons of Ibrahim alayhi salam are. Who are the sons of Yaqub alayhi salam? Who does that include? Yusuf alayhi salam. Includes Yusuf alayhi salam. Now you tell me, he gave this advice to his sons, and this is, by some scholars, this is towards the end of his life, because he's leaving a will, so it implies this is towards the tail end of his life. We know that Yusuf alayhi salam had brothers who did some pretty messed up things. They did some pretty messed up things. It's not like like I give the example often, it's not like they took the rear view mirror broken from the dad's car and brought it back and said, Dad, sorry, I took your car for a spin, and he says, Sabrun Jameel. That's not what happened. They took a shirt, riddled with false blood, and they took it to their father. And they forgot to rip it up too, so you could tell that's not how animals eat. They don't take the shirt off and then eat, and then, so he knew they were lying about it too. So they did some pretty messed up stuff. The reason I'm bringing this up is that we're learning through this dua and this instruction. On the one hand, there's dua. Ibrahim alayhi salam already made dua, take care of my children. But that's not enough. He has to tell his kids to stay straight too. Don't you dare die except that you're Muslims. Remain in submission. He has to take care of both things. Dua alone is not enough. You have to do that, your part too. Then the dua has power. Then Allah gives barakah in that dua. The other thing here is, whose kids are these? We said Yaqub alayhi salam. Whose son is he? Who's Yaqub alayhi salam the son of? Ishaq alayhi salam. And he's the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So these guys, these brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, illa Binyamin, except for Binyamin, these are sons of a prophet, grandsons of a prophet, great-grandsons of a prophet. And yet they still messed up pretty bad. You could say they come from a pretty good family. You could say that they come from a pretty decent family. You know, a lot of times nowadays when you try to give warnings about youth going astray, people say, no, not my kids. We come from a good family. Now my kids, we have mashallah, our grandfather was a scholar and his father was a muhaddith and his scholar was the head of the tafsir department of our madrasa, and you know, our 5 generations of hufaz, we're solid. I mean, righteousness runs in our blood. It's genetic for us. You know, we don't have those problems. You must be talking about that guy's kids. My kids, no, we come from a good family. Our last name is Muhammad or Ahmad or Quraishi or Chaudhry or something. Therefore, our children are incapable of messing up. Let me guarantee you guys something. None of us come from a purer family than the sons of Yaqub alayhi salam. Nobody does here. Nobody has that kind of lineage. Sons of a prophet, grandsons of a prophet, great-grandsons of a prophet, and brothers with a prophet too. Right? I mean, they're just one after another. They're coming from this pure lineage. But genetics aren't enough to keep you righteous. It doesn't run in the blood. It's not necessarily the case. You know, the mushrikun of Makkah are also children of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The followers of Musa alayhi salam are also the children of Yaqub alayhi salam. And the hypocrites among them are also followers of Yaqub alayhi salam. You know, there's no guarantees. So we can't recline on our heritage and say that our children are going to be okay. That can't be the case. And the final quick reminder I want to give you through these ayat, this parenting issue, how much Allah has emphasized worrying about the future generation in these ayat. It's a really interesting transition in Baqarah. And you're about to see more of it. On the one hand, there is you worrying about the future. And also not being a fool and not worry about the future. On the one hand, that's what we're learning. On the other hand, you know what we're going to start learning now? There are people who look at their past and they take pride in their past, even if their past was wrong. And they don't want to change their ways because they say, our past is like this, that's our tradition, we're not going to budge. We take pride in who we are, right? So there's people there's 2 kinds of foolish behavior. There's one, you're not worried about your future, and 2, you're reclining on your past, whether it was good or not. And we'll see both those kinds of mistakes, outlined in these ayat. Did Yusuf alayhi salam, you have to ask yourself this final question, was Yaqub alayhi salam a good parent? Absolutely. Actually, in the Quran, if you study Yaqub alayhi salam, you'll find, if you're looking for model parenting in the Quran, there are very few passages that talk about good fathers, and Yaqub alayhi salam somehow ends up in them. You have Luqman radiallahu anhu and his advice to his son, but you have Yaqub alayhi salam several times talking about his children, especially in Surah Yusuf here in Baqarah. So he's a model parent. Of course he's a prophet, so he's a model in that sense too. And even worrying about his kids, Allah mentions him making dua, so he's clearly a model parent. But his son still messed up. What are we learning here? You can do your best with your children, and you don't have a choice. You have to do your best with your children. But in the end, they will make the decisions that they will make once they become adults. And once they become adults and they make the dumb decisions that they might make, because they are adults, you yelling and screaming will not make things better and turn them righteous all of a sudden. At that point, you need to take Yaqub alayhi salam's advice and say what? فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانِ. That's all he can do. I mean, I was expecting him to yell and scream when he brings back the shirt, but he knows these guys are at an age where yelling at them and going crazy at them is not going to work. Their ship is sailed. I did what I could with them. But, the rest I have to leave to Allah. He reminds them. He gives them warning. He reminds them of Allah. Allahul Musta'an ala ma tasifun. And he gives them his example. I'm going to have sabr. But he can't do much more. And that sabr and that dua, that sincere dua to Allah, years go by, but eventually those bad, corrupt sons do make tawbah. They do come around. So those of you that are having trouble with your older kids, and you say, I've been making dua, nothing's happened. Right? Well, it takes a while. It takes a while. You have to have a lot of sabr. Now these are important lessons for parenting that Allah has embedded in these beautiful ayat. Inshallah, we'll talk more about this ayah itself in our next gathering. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ni wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.